you're hoping that Horton turns into a top of the rotation guy, but you know Chris Sale is and has that playoff experience.
Well, listen. I feel weird to even kind of contradict or fly in the face of what Sut said for two reasons. A, he's a baseball genius, and secondly, I would never want to piss him off and get punched by him. But if Sut says absolutely not, that would make me, obviously pause. Starts in 2024. He made 20 starts in 2023. So at the age of 36 now, that is something you do have to factor in, but you get the benefit of a very reasonable salary for another season. Look, I'm not a diehard fan of your team. I'm saying I'd go all in.
So you would say, and I'm leaning that way, but it still makes me nervous because I wouldn't give him up for just you have to get a Chris Sale, or someone who is a frontline starter. So I brought up Cap. I'll always remember this because I was a very young producer at the time. I was producing Cap at GN, and it was when Kerry Wood first came up in '98, and I was reporting and I was producing, and Cap did a whole Sports Central show on that he would not trade Kerry Wood for anybody. Anybody. And what's his name came up at the time from Boston, Montreal.
Pedro Martinez.
Pedro Martinez came up. And Cap said, infamously, I would not trade Kerry Wood for Pedro Martinez.
Has he changed his tune on that at this point afterwards? The benefit of hindsight?
I would hope so.
Okay.
And look, that a lot of people are like that when you have a young, cost-controlled pitcher who could be great. Dylan Cease, it wasn't like he was even further down. He wasn't even a major leaguer then. So, and I always remember that when they made that trade for Quintana, that Sut told us he didn't like that Cease was included in the deal. So I reached out to Sut, and I said, Sut, this is just us. This is just us speculating. This is not a thing, but we're talking about this. And remember, Sut was a guy in '84 that he was on Cleveland and that the Cubs traded for. And he went 16-1 that year and won the Cy Young.
Let me tell you, Marco.
That's right. Dallas Green called me. I could still hear him talking about that story. So I said to Sut, hypothetically speaking, I said, we're having a debate. If I told you the Cubs could get a year and a half of Chris Sale for Cade Horton, would you do it? We're just speculating, but I remember you didn't like trading Cease. But would you say going for it for Sale, but the Braves, what would you say to going for it with Sale, but the Braves demand Horton? And this is like I've heard other people say, well, I'd like to give up this guy instead or that guy instead. I'm telling you, what if the Braves have other offers and the Braves, there's no guarantee we'll even trade him to begin with. They could go back and say, we're keeping him for next year at a pretty good cost.
Which is where I would put my money on them, but go ahead.
So you could say, we're not giving you a deal for Chris Sale unless we get this guy.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think Sut said?
I think Sut tends to want, I would say, like Cease, he doesn't want to include Cade Horton. That'd be my guess.
Waddle.
Charlie, what do you think?
I think he wants the vet.
You think he wants the vet?
Yeah, I think he wants Sale.
The Corvette? Sut
Either
and a
one.
Corvette it's just a perfect match, too, isn't it? You see Sut driving around Chicago, Wrigleyville, and like a T-top Corvette, old school Corvette. Perfect match.
He texted me back pretty quickly with 5 characters. It was in all caps, N-O, followed by 3 exclamation points. He would not give up Cade Horton for Chris Sale and was adamant about that. I didn't ask him to expand. Maybe we could have him on the next week or so. But, like in the future this is the guy. This is a first-round pick who a lot of people finally believe they've developed well. They've been patient with.
I don't remember the last time Sut was wrong about a Cubs
pitcher.
Or even he's been spot on mostly with every position, hasn't he, with us?
Like the things that we could, that I could just tangibly say. He told us Kyle Hendricks was going to be great.
Yes.
He said, he's just got that it. he said that Dylan Cease was going to be great. And then he, on a non-pitching front, when PCA had the lowest credibility during his major league career, Sut said, don't you worry, guys. Don't you worry, Marco. He's going to be fine, and he's going to be a great player.
Said the same thing about Matt Shaw.
No, he didn't.
He didn't?
He did not.
I thought he did.
That's what caught my ear. He did that surprised me because I gave him the opportunity.
Oh, that's right.
To give an endorsement like he gave, and he didn't go against Matt Shaw, but he did not endorse Matt Shaw the way he endorsed those other three guys. He assured us Kyle Hendricks, Dylan Cease, PCA would be great.
Did you talk to Sut when Shaw was sent down, right?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, that's right. Either then or right before he was sent down. But he looks great now.
Yeah.
I love the way Shaw looks.
Plays good defense.
And it's been like, I tweeted out the other day, and I said it on the show, next to PCA's power and just being in the MVP race, nothing has surprised me more this season than Matt Shaw's defense.
Yeah. He's been fantastic.
Nothing. Not first year at third base to make the flash plays that he has made, especially since being called up. That looks like a natural-born third baseman right there.
Bothered at all that they've dropped their last two series?
Not bothered.
Okay.
Well, I mean, like, disappointed. You know, you always want them to win. I'm not bothered. You know, they won 7 straight series, and then they lost 2 of 3 to Detroit and to Philly.
The only reason I bring it up is because, look, they pounded the teams you're supposed to pound. I just wondered if, and again, when you think about how they've struggled at times against better pitchers.
You know why I'm not worried per se?
I wouldn't even say worried. I mean, that's too bad. Yeah, bothered by it.
You know why I'm not bothered? I was looking at the Dodgers. Guess how many times this season they've lost 5 of 7?
Well, the way you put it, I bet you it's multiple times. Yeah, I was going to say 2 or 3.
3 times.
Yeah.
So they've had a similar stretch like this 3 different instances this season.
I know, but anytime you compare anybody with the Dodgers, I get a little itchy and scratchy because the Dodgers are the Dodgers. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
they are, but like they're kind of like the Cubs in the sense that they've got an awesome lineup. The pitching's a little suspect.
Well,
there's more so because of injury.
Yeah, but they've had 18 guys on the injury list.
Even the Cubs, like they've lost their top 2 starters due to injury.
That's true.
They've lost some bullpen pieces due to injury.
I guess the only reason why I said what I say is because, look, when was the last time the Cubs won a playoff series?
Well, it's been 2017.
Okay,
that was when they beat Washington.
Maybe it's just a reflex, like when you compare this Cubs team or anybody with the Dodgers. The first thing I do is I put my arms up.
Well,
it's more so just like this is kind of the flow of baseball.
Yeah, like teams are going to lose series eventually, and if it's going to be to Detroit and Philly, so be it. They've done well against good teams. They've done really well against bad teams. I want to see this go a little bit more. But I do believe, and I won't believe that they have a chance to win a World Series unless they get a frontline starter. Shota has to be healthy, and they have to get a frontline starter. And that's where we want to ask you, let's talk about it here. And Let's Talk About It is brought to you by BetterHelp. Mental health is health. Visit BetterHelp.com/timeout today for 10% off your first month of therapy. Like, we hear it all the time, and I hear it from Captain Cap. I hear it in the morning, especially from when the Cubs are really a peripheral Cubs team. 2 years ago, I knew they weren't a true contender. With David Ross, that was the year. Remember, I still wanted them to sell. I wanted them to get something for Cody Bellinger then. And Cap's like, anytime you're in it, nothing is promised to you tomorrow. You have to go for it. But now what they have is a legit team. Now they have a legit team. So with the legit team, if you have a chance to get one of the top pitchers out there, not just top pitchers available, Chris Sale is one of the top pitchers out there. Would you stop it because it's Cade Horton? And
I don't know enough personally about Cade Horton. You guys do. At first blush, I'm like, absolutely.
I worry that he could be great. But I also know that I'm not trading him. I think it's worth a try here. I think it's worth it. This isn't Quintana. This is a guy who can still dominate. It isn't a guy who's going to give you 3 runs in 6 innings or 5 innings. Now, there is the injury risk. Mm-hmm. But there's been the injury risk his whole career. And you used to joke how you tried to get, someone even tweeted about this, you used to try to get your arm into the angle that he throws it at.
While I was sitting on the toilet.
This happened on the toilet.
Yes, don't you remember? That's when I said I would sit on the toilet and try to get my arm into the angle that Chris Sale's arm is, the angle his arm is at when he delivers the baseball, and I couldn't do it.
He reminds me of the opposite of Mark Pryor, right? A guy who looked like he could snap at any minute and break, but yet he's had a Hall of Fame career and for the most part has stayed healthy and didn't have the perfect mechanics like Pryor. And Pryor was a guy that you thought would pitch forever, would throw, 200 wins, 3,000 strikeouts.
Yeah.
And his career just blew up.
Yes.
So you just never know.
You don't know. But this team is, this team's going to be there. It's got a chance. I'd love to see, again, as a non-involved bystander, I'd love to see them take a swing like that and bring in Chris Sale.
Yeah, like you go through these times where you faked yourself into making a deal and you've lost a prospect because of that. There's no guarantee you're going to get Kyle Tucker back.
Right.
There's none. So when you have Kyle Tucker, you already gave up a lot for Kyle Tucker.
But I want to win. I'm tired of losing.
Well, the thing about Trey Hendrickson, too, is it wouldn't cost you a Cade Horton type player.
No, it's going to cost you a second-round pick.
Right.
It's not going to cost you as much.
This is your youngest, most promising pitcher you have, especially now that Steele's had 2 arm injuries. Shota's up there, and you're hoping that Horton turns into a top-of-the-rotation guy. But Chris Sale is. And has that playoff experience.
Well, listen. I feel weird to even kind of contradict or fly in the face of what Sut said for 2 reasons. A, he's a baseball genius, and secondly, I would never want to piss him off and get punched by him. But if Sut says absolutely not, that would make me, obviously pause. But again, Chris Sale in a Cubs uniform on the north side.
That's why we got to get Sud on here in the next week or so. I want to hear who he thinks Horton's going to be. Like, how good is Horton? Does he believe that Horton will be a top of the rotation guy? Eddie,
he would have to be if, in fact, Sut felt like you wouldn't be willing to trade him for Chris Sale. Like, if Sut thought he was a 3, then do you think he would have responded to you as adamantly as he did?
Unless he doesn't believe in Sale. Maybe he thinks that Sale could snap, or Sale, like you said, another caller brought up that Sale wasn't available for the Braves last year. Yeah. Remember, he really wanted to go, wasn't it? A really big thing down the stretch, and then he wasn't able to pitch.
Well, the other part of it, too, is Cade Horton has not thrown many innings in his career. How available is he going to be for a playoff run?
No, you're right.
Or even in August and September, when you may be playing in some big, meaningful games, trying to work into a bye in the NL.
Yeah, it's been basically my philosophy. When I don't think I'm really in it, where I'm a pretender, like I knew the Cubs were 2 years ago, I'm then selling. I am picking a lane, and because that's how you get the PCAs of the world. That's how you get their closer today. In a deal that you never thought for Andrew Chafin that you would get a guy who could possibly be a really good back-end reliever. They don't all hit, but that's the time that you revitalize your farm system. And then when you are in it, I am sparing no expense to go for it with top-tier guys.